There are secrets, buried in the shadows, and when the truth is revealed, all trust shatters. Blood does not lie. And the truth will always find a way to rise. Betrayal, pain, and a family on the edge of the abyss. Will they escape the darkness, or be consumed by it forever? Once upon a time, in a lush green valley in Maryland, where the rolling hills swayed gently like ocean waves, there lived a small community. It was a peaceful land where time seemed to stand still, leaving its mark on every leaf and every stream that babbled year-round. Nature blended harmoniously with the people, creating a serene and tranquil painting. At the heart of the valley stood a majestic ancient oak tree, its wide branches spreading like a giant umbrella, sheltering and protecting all living beings beneath it. The oak had stood there for centuries, witnessing the growth, maturity, and even the losses of the community. In the whispers of the wind, people believed that the spirits of their ancestors merged with the rustling leaves, softly offering guidance or warnings. Whenever someone sought answers, they would simply sit beneath the tree and listen to the wind, feeling as though their ancestors were listening and guiding them. The oak tree was not just a living being, but the heart and soul of the community. Under its shade, all important rituals were held. It was where families came to pray, where elders made decisions, and also where truths, sometimes difficult to face, were revealed. Villagers often gathered here to share stories of their ancestors, about honesty, sacrifice, and valuable lessons to pass on to future generations. On quiet afternoons under the tree, sunlight would filter through the leaves, illuminating the radiant faces of children playing. The adults sat in small groups, discussing matters or simply enjoying the view of nature. Under the oak's shade, all conflicts and disputes were resolved peacefully, as if the tree possessed an invisible power that brought people together in harmony. In this small community, Elder Samuel was a respected figure. He was a tall man with deep-set eyes and a warm, resonant voice. His appearance exuded calmness and wisdom. Samuel was known not only for his fairness in decision-making, but also for his ability to lead the community through difficult times. Whenever conflicts arose, people would seek Samuel's counsel. With fairness and clarity, he always found solutions that satisfied both sides. Thanks to him, the valley maintained its harmony across generations. After his first wife passed away from illness, Samuel married Ellena, a woman of graceful beauty and noble character. Ellena was not only the ideal partner, but also Samuel's greatest source of encouragement. She was the embodiment of gentleness and resilience. Every word and action radiated warmth and compassion. Ellena was always the first to appear when any family in the community faced hardship. She offered not just comforting words, but also practical support, from caring for the sick to helping with harvests. Thanks to Ellena, Samuel's family was not only the center of leadership, but also a beacon of kindness and generosity. In their cozy home, Samuel and Elena's only daughter, Naomi, grew up like a shining gem. With her silky black hair and eyes as bright as the morning sun, Naomi exuded a pure and radiant beauty. Naomi's smile warmed everyone's hearts. It was not only a symbol of joy, but also brought comfort to anyone who met her. Whether children or adults, anyone could easily be drawn to her calm demeanor and kind heart. Naomi often spent time telling stories to the children under the oak tree, tales of courage and honesty. To the adults, she was a wonderful listener. Many sought her out when they felt troubled, leaving with a sense of relief, as if Naomi's mere presence could dispel their worries. Naomi was not just a girl. She was a symbol of hope in the valley. She carried within her a strong connection to everyone around her, as if every word and action of hers was blessed by the ancestors. The villagers often whispered that Naomi was the embodiment of the light that the ancient oak tree always protected. She was the one to whom all lost souls would turn, a guiding light in the darkest nights. Though life in this small community seemed perfect, as in any place, shadows and secrets always lurked somewhere. And as the ancient oak continued to stand tall under the Maryland sky, no one knew that beneath its wide-spreading branches, hidden secrets would one day be revealed, forever changing the lives of those who lived there. On the other side of the Maryland Valley in the state of Georgia, where endless cotton fields stretch under the radiant sunlight, stood a vast farm, a proud testament to human strength and development. This was the home of Jonah, a talented and powerful leader who dedicated his entire life to serving the community. Jonah was a man with an imposing figure and sharp eyes, always carrying a great responsibility. He was not just a leader, but a symbol of stability and prosperity. His cotton fields were not only the livelihood of his family, but also a helping hand extended to those in need. He used his wealth to share and support struggling families within the community. Stories about Jonah spread throughout the southern United States. People spoke of how he traveled far to states like Alabama and Louisiana to build relationships between African American communities, connecting them through trade and culture. His presence brought not only respect, but also hope to all those seeking a brighter future. In the grand house at the heart of the farm, Jonah's only son, Gabriel, was his greatest pride. This young man inherited his father's handsome appearance and dignified demeanor. But what truly made Gabriel stand out was his compassionate heart. Gabriel was known not only for his calmness and intelligence, but also for his rare kindness and patience. Children in the community often ran to the farm just to hear Gabriel tell stories or learn from his exemplary behavior. Adults saw him as an ideal role model, quietly believing that he would follow in his father's footsteps to become a great leader in the future. Gabriel often strolled through the cotton fields, his eyes gazing thoughtfully toward the horizon. In his heart, peace and responsibility coexisted. He understood that beneath the beauty of those vast fields lay the expectations of not only his family, but the entire community. One spring day, as cherry blossoms drifted gently over the Potomac River, Jonah and Samuel, the elder of the Maryland community, met under the ancient oak tree. The atmosphere was quiet, yet filled with solemnity. These two men, representing their families and communities, shook hands in a grand ceremony. The betrothal between Gabriel and Naomi was not merely a union of two families, but a symbol of peace and cooperation between two communities. It carried a deeper meaning than a wedding. It was a promise of a bright future where both communities would grow and thrive together. As the news spread, joy ignited like a flame in everyone's hearts. The elders rejoiced in the bright future this marriage would bring. They imagined fields filled with children's laughter, bustling market gatherings, and the harmony that the two families would foster. While the adults discussed the significance of the marriage, the children eagerly anticipated the wedding day. They imagined Naomi in her pure white wedding dress and Gabriel in his vibrant traditional attire under the shining sun. Laughter and chatter echoed throughout the villages, illuminating the air with joy and excitement. At Jonah's farm, the atmosphere was livelier than ever. Tailors carefully finished Gabriel's wedding outfit, each stitch reflecting elegance and refinement. Meanwhile, Jonah prepared for a long journey to find precious gifts for the young couple. He carried with him hope and determination, as if he were preparing for a major turning point in his life. In Maryland's Valley, Naomi, with her gentle beauty and heart full of love, was also preparing for the big day. She carried not only her family's hopes, but also those of the entire community. Every step she took brought a sense of peace and light to those around her. The promise between Gabriel and Naomi was not just the connection between two people, but also the intertwining of two destinies. Under the brilliant spring sunlight, the cotton fields of Georgia and the lush green valleys of Maryland seemed to be linked by an invisible thread, carrying the hopes and dreams of both communities. Gentle breezes blew, carrying the fragrance of newly bloomed cotton flowers and the sound of cheerful conversations. Yet beneath the surface of joy, something quietly began to change. The leaves of the ancient oak tree trembled slightly, as if whispering a secret to those willing. Listen. Gabriel and Naomi's wedding was not only a grand event, but also a symbol of trust and hope. However, like any story, shadows always linger somewhere, waiting to be revealed. While everyone was busy preparing for the wedding, no one realized that beneath the pristine cotton fields and the shade of the ancient oak tree, secrets were beginning to surface. Time seemed to slow down, leaving indelible marks on every blade of grass and every branch. Gabriel and Naomi, two people bearing great responsibility and trust, would soon face challenges that no one could foresee. Follow the channel to continue exploring this captivating story. On a radiant spring day, as cherry blossoms bloomed along the banks of the Potomac River, the Maryland Valley awakened in the lively atmosphere of a grand occasion. This was not just the wedding day of Naomi and Gabriel, but also a significant event that united two communities, carrying with it hope and promises of a prosperous future. Under the shade of the ancient oak tree, the most sacred place in the community, people had begun preparations early in the morning. Lanterns hung high, casting shimmering lights that created a magical ambience. Women in vibrant long dresses wove shawls by hand while singing traditional songs, their melodies intertwined with the gentle breeze, forming a symphony honoring love and unity. Elsewhere, men busily prepared fragrant apple cider and roasted meat over glowing red charcoal stoves. They laughed and shared joyful stories while children ran across the fields, eagerly picking wildflowers to decorate the ceremony area. The laughter of children echoed throughout the valley, brightening the already vibrant atmosphere. Meanwhile, along a winding road through the lush green hills, Jonah was returning from a long journey to Texas. His horse-drawn carriage was filled with precious gifts, and he gazed proudly toward the valley in the distance. Jonah had spent weeks preparing for this special day. He brought back rare spices from the south, fine silks from Houston, and intricately carved vases crafted by local artisans. To him, these gifts were more than material offerings. They symbolized blessings and deep respect for the young couple. During his journey, Jonah thought about Gabriel, his only son, and Naomi, the girl praised by many as the embodiment of light. Jonah believed this marriage was not merely the union of two people, but the beginning of a promising new chapter for both communities. In a small house at the edge of the valley, Naomi stood quietly before a mirror. Morning sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the pristine white gown she wore. Embroidered with golden threads, the dress was the result of her family's women's hard work, especially crafted by her aunts for this important day. Naomi gently smoothed the soft fabric, feeling each stitch as if it carried her family's love and hopes. A pure joy shone in her eyes, though deep inside, her heart raced with excitement and anticipation. She had heard many stories about Gabriel, about his calm demeanor, compassion, and wisdom. Even though they had not yet met, Naomi felt a special connection, as if fate had destined them to be together. Under the great oak tree, where the ceremony would take place, the atmosphere grew even more festive. Long tables were neatly arranged, covered with colorful cloths. Bright baskets of wildflowers were placed everywhere, filling the air with sweet fragrance. Elders of the community sat together, sharing stories of ancient weddings and love that overcame all challenges. They looked at Naomi from afar, smiling contentedly, as if they could foresee a bright future awaiting her. Not far away, Gabriel stood before a mirror in his carefully tailored wedding attire. His long robe, adorned with intricate embroidery, accentuated his tall frame, while his eyes glimmered with determination. Gabriel was preparing not only for the wedding, but also for the great responsibility he was about to shoulder. This marriage was not just his personal union, but also the hope of two communities. He understood that every step he took that day would be for love and for the trust placed in him. As everything seemed perfect, a sudden breeze from the Potomac River swept through, carrying a chill across the lively atmosphere. The lanterns under the oak tree swayed gently, creaking softly as if whispering echoes from a distant past. From her room, Naomi sensed the shift in the air. She stepped outside, her gaze sweeping over the lush green fields. Everything seemed peaceful, yet a vague feeling stirred within her. Under the oak tree, people continued their work. Laughter echoed and traditional music began to play, blending with the wind. But if one listened closely, hidden within the melodies was a somber note, a warning unnoticed by all. When Jonah's carriage appeared in the distance, an entire community erupted in joyful cheer. The man, with his warm smile and proud gaze, stepped down, carrying gifts and blessings from the places he had travelled. Jonah embraced Gabriel, his hand resting firmly on his son's shoulder, as if passing on strength. He looked at Naomi from afar, his eyes gentle, as if to say she was the perfect one to join Gabriel in writing a new story. As the sun rose high, its light filtered through the tree branches, creating a splendid scene. Naomi, in her pristine white wedding gown, took slow, deliberate steps toward the oak tree. Gabriel stood there, his eyes locked onto her figure, his heart pounding faster with every step she took. The crowd around them fell silent for a moment, as if time itself had paused. Yet beneath the surface of this perfection, something was stirring. Hidden secrets, untold words, were slowly finding their way to the surface. This wedding was not just a celebration of love and joy. It was an invitation from fate, a fate that would soon challenge everything they had ever believed in. The radiant morning sunlight streamed through the oak tree's branches, illuminating the entire Maryland Valley. Today was Naomi's wedding day, a day the whole community had eagerly awaited. The sound of birdsong echoed everywhere, blending with the bustling footsteps of people preparing for the ceremony. The air was filled with excitement, as if even nature itself was celebrating the young couple. Naomi, in her pristine white wedding dress embroidered with golden threads, slowly ascended the steps leading to Gabriel's lodge. According to tradition, this was a significant moment when the bride and groom would meet privately for the first time before the ceremony. She took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of cherry blossoms carried by the breeze. Her heart pounded with both anticipation and happiness. But as Naomi placed her hand on the lodge's door, a strange feeling crept into her mind. She paused for a moment, trying to calm herself. With a soft smile, she gently pushed the door open, ready to face the man she believed would build a bright future with her. However, the moment she crossed the threshold, Naomi froze in shock, as if the entire world around her had suddenly collapsed. Before her was an unimaginable scene. Gabriel, the man she loved, and Ellena, her stepmother, whom she deeply trusted, were in an intimate embrace. The shimmering white gown Naomi wore, glowing in the morning light, seemed to pale in comparison to the overwhelming shock that engulfed her. Ellena startled, quickly pulling away from Gabriel, but it was too late. Naomi caught the guilty looks in both their eyes, and in that moment, all her trust, love, and hope were torn apart like fragile fabric. Naomi's heart felt as if it had been crushed. Her breath became laboured, painful. Tears streamed down her face, blurring the image before her, but they couldn't erase the harsh reality she had just witnessed. Her lips trembled, but no words could escape. She staggered back a step, gripping the doorframe as if searching for something to hold on to amidst the crashing waves of betrayal. She couldn't believe that her stepmother, the woman who had cared for and loved her for so many years, and Gabriel, the man she trusted and loved with all her heart, could betray her in such a cruel way. Elena's face turned pale as she struggled to speak, but failed. Gabriel was no better, his eyes filled with panic and regret. But to Naomi, any explanation now was meaningless. Unable to endure another second, Naomi turned and fled from the lodge. Her white dress dragged along the ground, stained by mud, but she didn't care. The sound of her footsteps echoed along the narrow path, each step carrying the weight of everything she had once cherished, now shattered. Naomi ran through the courtyard where guests had begun to gather. Curious eyes turned toward her, but she didn't stop. Murmurs began to spread, but she couldn't hear them. In Naomi's mind, there was only one thought: to escape this place, to flee from the pain she could not bear. The wedding dress, once her symbol of pride and hope, now felt like a heavy burden slowing her down. Yet Naomi didn't stop. She ran toward the Potomac River, where cherry blossoms were still in full bloom. But to her, the beauty of the scene only highlighted the cruelty of reality. Every step Naomi took left silent tears, falling to the ground. Her heart ached so deeply that it felt as if it might stop beating altogether. She thought about every moment that had passed, the gentle words of her stepmother, Gabriel's promises, and the dreams she had once nurtured of a happy family. But now, all of it was nothing but lies. She felt as though she were drowning in a nightmare with no escape. Meanwhile, back at the lodge, Ellena and Gabriel stood frozen, like wrongdoers who had just been exposed. Ellena tried to regain her composure, but inside fear and shame burned like a raging fire. Gabriel, pale and shaken, wanted to chase after Naomi, but his legs felt rooted to the ground. News of Naomi's sudden flight quickly spread throughout the wedding venue. Guests whispered in confusion, their eyes filled with curiosity and bewilderment. Why had the bride run away? What had happened? Elder Samuel, Naomi's father, felt a growing unease upon seeing his daughter leave in such haste and pain. He stepped away from the crowd and quickly made his way toward the lodge to find answers. When Samuel entered the lodge, he saw Ellena nervously adjusting her clothes, while Gabriel stood beside her, his eyes vacant. Samuel immediately sensed something was wrong. What happened here? His deep, authoritative voice carried a weight of concern that was impossible to hide. Ellena faltered, unable to meet Samuel's eyes. Gabriel remained silent, but his silence spoke volumes. Samuel scanned the room, his eyes lingering on subtle details. Elena's dishevelled clothing, Gabriel's stunned expression, and the slightly ajar door. The truth slowly pieced itself together in Samuel's mind, like a cold, sharp knife cutting through him, leaving him on the brink of collapse. Naomi ran to the banks of the Potomac River, where the gentle, winding waters reflected the brilliant morning sunlight. But to her eyes, there was no beauty left. All she saw was an empty world where trust and love had shattered into countless pieces. Her once pristine white wedding dress, a symbol of happiness and hope, was now wrinkled and stained with mud. She collapsed to her knees beside the river, her shoulders trembling with every stifled sob. Everything inside her felt torn apart, her heart was broken, her mind chaotic and hollow. Her eyes drifted to the blooming cherry blossoms above, their delicate petals softly falling onto the water below, like nature's silent tears sharing in her unspeakable pain. Naomi gently touched a petal that had fallen near her, but its softness only deepened her sorrow. In the haunting stillness of nature, a dark thought crept into Naomi's mind. She stared at the swift current beneath her feet, wondering if the river could wash away everything, her pain, the betrayal, and even herself. The thought grew clearer, stronger, like a whispered invitation rising from the river's depths. She slowly stood up, her bare feet hesitantly stepping toward the water's edge. The cold water touched her skin, sending a shiver through her. With each step, she felt her heart breaking a little more. How can I face them? She wondered. The expectant gazes, the community's trust, and the future she once thought was hers, all now lay scattered like broken shards in her mind. As Naomi prepared to take another step forward, a strange sound broke through the stillness. A soft, gentle melody, like a breeze, caused her to pause. She lifted her tear-filled eyes, scanning the surroundings for the source of the sound. From beneath the river's surface, a glowing figure emerged. It was a mermaid, her long, lustrous hair flowing and her eyes as deep as the waters themselves. The mermaid seemed like a being born from legend, with an enchanting beauty that Naomi couldn't look away from. "Naomi," the mermaid spoke, her voice clear yet carrying an unusual authority. "Your pain is not the end. It is the beginning of a journey you have yet to know." Naomi said nothing, standing silently as she gazed at the mermaid. The creature's eyes held a profound understanding, as if she had witnessed every joy and sorrow of the world. "I know what you are thinking," the mermaid continued, "but remember, Life is a series of trials. Love and trust may be betrayed, but your true strength lies in whether you can rise above them. Naomi felt a warm wave spreading through her chest, though the pain still lingered. How can I go on when everything I once believed in has fallen apart? She thought. The mermaid smiled softly. You cannot change what has happened, but you can choose how to face it. Tears do not stop the river from flowing. They only make its waters clearer. And so it is with you. Let this pain cleanse your heart, not drown it. The mermaid's words were like a torch lighting the darkness within Naomi. She stood still, letting the river's water swirl around her feet, absorbing every word deep into her soul. She didn't know if she could overcome this pain, but for the first time, she realized she didn't have to let it define who she was. Naomi closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, allowing the wind and water to carry away some of the weight in her heart. When she opened her eyes, the mermaid was gone, leaving only the sparkling morning light dancing on the water. Yet the mermaid's words still echoed, like a gentle reminder from the river itself. Naomi stepped back from the water's edge. Her once white gown was now soaked and dirty, but she no longer cared. She gazed up at the cherry blossoms again, but this time with a different feeling. The falling petals were no longer just symbols of sympathy. They were reminders that everything could begin anew. Slowly, she began to walk back toward the path leading to the valley. With each step, it felt as if her heart was starting to heal, little by little. Naomi didn't know what awaited her ahead, but she knew she would face it with all the strength she had. By the Potomac River, the sunlight gleamed brightly, as if blessing her decision. And within the breeze that gently swept by, it seemed a soft melody still lingered, bidding her forward into a new chapter of her life. Jonah's carriage rumbled along the red dirt road leading to the farm, carrying precious gifts from his long journey. He was eager to return and witness the joyous wedding of his son, Gabriel, and Naomi, the beloved bride of the community. But as the carriage neared the farm gate, Jonah abruptly pulled the reins, his eyes suddenly fixed on a small figure collapsed by the roadside. Jonah hastily jumped down from the carriage. It was Naomi. The young woman lay motionless, her once pristine white wedding dress now wrinkled and soiled with dust. Her face was pale, her eyes tightly shut as if all life had been drained from her. A strong gust of wind swept by, scattering cherry blossom petals around her, amplifying the sorrow of the scene. "Naomi!" Jonah cried out, his voice full of worry. He knelt down and gently lifted her into his arms. His heart ached as he saw her in such a state. Without hesitation, Jonah rushed her to the village healer, an elderly woman trusted by all for her wisdom and skill. When Naomi finally regained consciousness, tears streamed uncontrollably down her face. Her heart still ached, every breath feeling heavier than the last. Jonah sat beside her, his eyes soft but filled with deep concern. "Naomi, my dear, what has happened?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. Naomi couldn't hold back any longer. She broke into sobs, her cries pouring out like a flood breaking through a dam. She recounted everything. The shocking scene she had witnessed between her stepmother Ellena and Gabriel, the betrayal that had torn her heart apart. Every word Naomi spoke cut through Jonah like a blade. Jonah sat frozen, his fists clenched so tightly they turned white. A burning fury flared within him, but the pain and disappointment were even greater. How could the people he trusted most cause such devastating harm? "You've suffered too much," Jonah said hoarsely. "I won't let this go." Without delay, Jonah returned to the farm where Gabriel and Ellena were consumed by turmoil. Gabriel paced back and forth anxiously, while Ellena sat silently, her eyes filled with regret. As Jonah entered, both looked up, but neither dared meet his eyes. Jonah stood tall and imposing, like a storm about to strike, his gaze sharp and cold, piercing through any lies. "Do either of you have something to say?" Jonah growled, each word as sharp as a knife. Ellena took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "Jonah, I can't justify what happened, but there's something you need to know. A truth I've hidden for many years." Jonah frowned, a sense of dread rising within him. "What truth?" Ellena looked up, her eyes red and voice trembling. Naomi isn't Samuel's biological daughter. She's yours. The room fell into a heavy silence. Her words struck Jonah like a bolt of lightning, leaving him stunned. What are you saying, Eleanor? He demanded, his voice low but seething with anger. Ellena lowered her head, tears streaming down her face. Years ago, before you left, I was pregnant, but I was scared. I couldn't tell you the truth. When you were gone, I married Samuel, and he agreed to raise Naomi as his own. I know I was wrong, but I didn't know what else to do. Gabriel, who had been silently standing by, felt the ground collapse beneath him. Naomi is my sister? He asked, his voice barely a whisper, shaken to the core. Ellena nodded, unable to meet his eyes. This truth didn't just shatter trust. It erased every hope Gabriel had for a future with Naomi. Jonah stood there, his fists clenched, his whole body trembling with rage. Yet behind the fury was a pain beyond words. He hadn't just been betrayed, he had been kept in the dark about the existence of his own flesh and blood for years. The news of this revelation quickly spread throughout the community. People were shocked, unable to believe that a family once seen as a symbol of unity and love could conceal such a devastating secret. Naomi, once the light of the valley, now found herself at the heart of a tragedy she never asked for. She and Gabriel realized they were half-siblings, a truth that rendered all their feelings and memories unacceptable. With a shattered heart, Gabriel tried to find Naomi to apologize, but she refused to see anyone. Naomi had no idea how to face it all. The truth didn't just destroy her dreams, it left a deep wound in her soul, one that might never heal. Though Jonah was consumed by pain and anger, he knew he had to face the consequences of this hidden truth. He felt an overwhelming responsibility for Naomi, the daughter he never knew, and vowed to protect her from any further harm. Naomi is my daughter, he told Ellena coldly. I will do everything to protect her, whether you want it or not. Ellena silently nodded, knowing she had no right to argue. She simply bowed her head, burdened by the guilt she knew she could never cast off. To the community, this truth was like a deep crack in the foundation of trust and unity. But for Naomi and Gabriel, it was the end of all hope for a future together, leaving them in a pain too profound for words. In the storm of truth and betrayal, Jonah knew this wasn't the end. He looked toward Naomi, who was struggling to find herself amid the wreckage of shattered emotions, and he silently promised, no matter the cost, he would do everything to pull her out of this darkness and begin a new chapter, a chapter of truth, courage, and forgiveness. Under the ancient oak tree, where all sacred ceremonies of the community took place, the atmosphere was heavier and more ominous than ever. Torches flickered, casting dancing flames onto the tense faces of those gathered in a tight circle. The wind rustled through the oak's leaves, whispering like the voices of ancestors, witnessing one of the most pivotal and turbulent days in the valley's history. Before any truth could be revealed, the elders decided to perform a sacred ritual, the blood test, to answer the questions drowning the community in chaos. This ritual was only conducted when trust and unity were shaken to their very core. The one leading the ceremony was none other than the eldest shaman in the region, a figure of solemn dignity and mystery with piercing eyes that seemed to see through all deceit. Naomi, Gabriel, Jonah, and Ellena were all summoned. Each of them stepped into the ceremonial circle with hearts weighed down by turmoil. Naomi still wore her dirt-stained wedding gown, her empty gaze barely masking the pain deep within. Gabriel stood a few steps away, unable to hide his confusion and shame. Jonah, once seen as the pillar of strength and stability, now bore a weary look, as though the weight of the world rested on his shoulders. Ellena stood silently in the distance, her eyes swollen with tears, fully aware that the secrets she had hidden for years were about to be exposed. The shaman, draped in a cloak embroidered with ancient symbols, slowly approached the center of the circle. She carried a clay bowl filled with a mixture of herbs and goat's blood, ingredients believed to connect souls and unveil the truth. Her sharp eyes scanned each person before her, and in a voice both deep and commanding, she declared, "Blood does not lie. Blood will reveal the truth, no matter how painful it may be." One by one, Naomi, Gabriel, Jonah, and Ellena extended their hands. The shaman pricked each fingertip, allowing a drop of their blood to fall into the clay bowl. The blood mingled with the herbs, swirling into crimson waves like a turbulent river. Around them, the community held its breath, watching every movement intently. The shaman murmured ancient prayers, calling upon the spirits of the ancestors for guidance. Smoke rose from the bowl, carrying the pungent scent of burning herbs, curling through the air and cloaking the gathering in a veil of mystery. She stirred the mixture slowly, her eyes closed as if communing with an unseen world. Naomi clenched her fists, every breath tight with anxiety. Gabriel remained frozen, his eyes locked on the swirling smoke, as if trying to glimpse the future. Jonah and Ellena stayed silent, but the lines on their faces betrayed their fear, an understanding that whatever came next would change everything forever. Finally, the shaman stopped. She raised the bowl high, allowing the torchlight to illuminate the mixture inside. When she opened her eyes, they burned with a fierce, otherworldly light. Her voice sliced through the suffocating silence. "Naomi, you are not Samuel's daughter. You are the biological daughter of Jonah." The words struck like a bolt of lightning, sending shockwaves through the valley. Naomi stood frozen, her eyes wide in disbelief. Jonah staggered back a step, his hands trembling, his eyes filled with unbearable pain. Ellena broke into sobs, clutching herself tightly. But before anyone could react, the shaman continued, "Gabriel, you are not Jonah's son. Your blood does not carry his lineage. You are the child of a former servant." The revelation made the air heavier than before. Gabriel stood motionless, his lips parted in shock but unable to form words. Ellena collapsed to her knees, her tears falling freely. "Eleanor," the shaman said, turning her gaze upon the weeping woman, "you have kept this secret for far too long, but now the truth has been laid bare." The community erupted in murmurs of disbelief. The family once viewed as the embodiment of unity and love had been hiding devastating secrets. Naomi felt her world crumbling. She and Gabriel, who once dreamed of a future together, now realized they were half-siblings. Every memory, every promise, every dream they had was now shattered. Gabriel, his heart breaking, looked at Naomi from afar. He longed to say something, but no words could possibly mend the pain. Jonah, the once revered man, now bowed his head, burdened by guilt for mistakes he hadn't made, but that had nonetheless destroyed his family. Beneath the great oak tree, the torch flames began to fade as the ritual ended. Yet the light of truth, however painful, continued to burn within each soul. Naomi, heartbroken, knew her life would never be the same. She had lost the man she loved and her trust in those closest to her. Gabriel, once the pillar of her dreams, was now nothing more than a painful memory she could never reach again. Ellena, drowning in shame and sorrow, quietly slipped away from the circle, carrying the consequences of a past she could never undo. Jonah, though trying to remain composed, knew his family was forever altered by the truth revealed beneath the oak. In the heart of the valley, the story of the blood test and the unveiled truths would be told for generations, serving as a reminder that no secret can stay hidden forever, and that the truth, no matter how bitter, will always find its way to the surface. After the truth was revealed beneath the ancient oak tree, the atmosphere in the Maryland Valley grew heavier than ever. Every villager, every house, every winding path seemed to carry the weight of an unprecedented tragedy. Whispers about Jonah and Samuel's family spread like a slow-burning fire, consuming the peace that had once been the valley's pride. Naomi, once a beacon of light and hope, now faced a bitter truth she had never imagined. In the days that followed, she rarely appeared in public. The sound of her laughter by the river, the nights she spent storytelling under the moonlight with the children, all had become distant memories. Naomi knew she couldn't remain in a place that had witnessed the greatest pain of her life. She had not only lost her dream of a future with Gabriel, but she also felt she no longer belonged to this community. Her heart was heavy, but her mind urged her to move on, to leave behind the past and the wounds it inflicted. One autumn morning, as the first light of day filtered through the trees, Naomi stepped out of the house where she had grown up. A small bag rested on her shoulder, holding only a few essentials and the weaving book her mother had once gifted her. She walked along familiar paths, roads that had once echoed with laughter and celebration, now eerily silent. Naomi chose California as her destination, a faraway land brimming with promise, where she could start anew. There she opened a small weaving shop. With her skillful hands and natural talent, Naomi quickly earned a reputation. The fabrics she wove were not only beautiful, but also carried stories and emotions, tales of endurance, loss, and the strength to overcome adversity. Naomi's shop became more than a place to buy fabric. It became a gathering space for women who resonated with her story. They came not just to purchase her cloth, but to hear about a young woman who had left everything behind to rediscover herself. Meanwhile, Gabriel, burdened with pain and shame, knew he could not stay in the valley. Every corner, every field reminded him of Naomi and all they had lost. He decided to join a merchant caravan, hoping that distant journeys might bring peace to his troubled soul. Gabriel left at dawn, when mist still clung to the valley. He didn't look back, didn't say goodbye. Only one small gift remained for Naomi, a silk handkerchief embroidered with a dove in flight. In it, he sent his silent wish for her to live freely and happily, even though they could no longer share a life together. On his travels through distant towns and unfamiliar lands, Gabriel found brief comfort in conversing with strangers, listening to their stories, and exploring new places. But deep in his heart, he still carried the shadow of Naomi and dreams that would never come true. Samuel and Ellena, once revered by the community, now drifted like shadows through the valley. Their betrayal and the long hidden secrets had led to their social isolation, yet both were determined to atone for their wrongdoings through lives of quiet service. Ellena began dedicating her time to caring for local orphans, teaching them how to weave and sew so they could support themselves. She found small solace in helping these children, as if this was her way of seeking forgiveness from Naomi. Samuel, burdened by guilt and regret, quietly used his remaining resources to support struggling families in the valley. He donated food and money but never appeared in public. He knew forgiveness from the community would not come easily, and perhaps he did not deserve to ask for it. Jonah, once a strong and respected leader, chose to withdraw from his role. He understood that the weight of past mistakes had weakened his standing within the community. He decided to step aside, leaving leadership to a younger generation, those filled with hope and the desire to build a brighter future. In his later years, Jonah spent long hours beneath the ancient oak tree, the witness to both joy and sorrow in his family's life. He sat there listening to the wind rustling through the leaves, as if seeking answers from the spirits of his ancestors. Though burdened by pain and regret, Jonah knew that life must go on. He hoped that by stepping back, he could create space for others to mend what had been broken, and that Naomi and Gabriel might find peace in their own separate journeys. The Maryland Valley, once a place of harmony and unity, now bore deep scars. Yet alongside the pain, faint glimmers of hope remained. Naomi found freedom and new purpose in California. Gabriel, though carrying his heartache, learned to move forward across distant lands. Samuel and Ellena, though living in solitude, sought redemption through quiet acts of kindness. And so, life in the valley continued, forever changed, but moving forward nonetheless. The story of the cursed wedding beneath the ancient oak tree remains an indelible part of the memories of the people of Maryland, Georgia, and the surrounding regions. Tales of that tragedy echo on bright moonlit nights, beside warm campfires, serving as a solemn warning and a profound lesson for future generations. It is often said that love without honesty is like a cracked vase. No matter how hard you try to conceal or protect it, eventually those cracks will spread and shatter the entire vessel. And when it breaks, it's not just the vase, but trust and hope that crumble with it. Naomi, once regarded as the light of the valley, never returned to the place that had witnessed the greatest pain of her life. Yet the shadow of the ancient oak, the whispers of the ancestors, and the deep lessons from that tragedy followed her wherever she went. In California, Naomi opened a small weaving shop, which quickly became a destination for those seeking something beyond ordinary fabric. Every cloth Naomi wove was a work of art, carrying stories stitched with both tears and hope. The golden threads woven into the fabric resembled sunlight, filtering through lush green leaves, telling stories of rebirth from pain. Customers came not only to buy beautiful textiles, but also to hear Naomi's story. They would ask about the intricate patterns and delicate embroidery, and Naomi, with a gentle smile, would share the lessons she had learned, that truth, no matter how painful, is the guiding light through darkness. Naomi's teachings weren't just woven into her fabrics, but embodied in her life itself. A living testament that no matter how devastating a tragedy may be, one can rise, rebuild life, and find new meaning. Meanwhile, Gabriel embarked on a completely different journey. After leaving the valley, he spent years wandering far and wide, seeking answers to questions he couldn't confront back home. His travels took him through bustling cities, distant lands, and crowded markets, where he built a successful trading career. Yet deep within, Gabriel knew he couldn't run forever. Dreams of Naomi, the ancient oak, and the Maryland Valley continued to haunt him, memories that remained unresolved. Years later, Gabriel returned to the valley, no longer the confused young man he once was, but a mature man carrying the weight of his own lessons. He knew there was one place he had to visit, one meeting he had to have to finally close this painful chapter in his life. Under the shadow of the oak tree, Naomi and Gabriel met one last time. There was no more confusion or resentment, only peace, in the eyes of two souls who had endured their greatest heartaches. Naomi stood there, radiating the strength and grace of someone who had grown through pain, while Gabriel carried the quiet confidence of a man who had found inner peace through a long and arduous journey. Words were unnecessary. Their eyes said it all. The truth had bound them forever, not as lovers, but as two souls destined to learn a profound lesson about life together. Naomi gently laid down a piece of fabric she had woven, with golden threads mimicking sunlight filtering through the oak's branches. Gabriel, his eyes reflecting both sorrow and gratitude, gave a slight nod, a silent farewell. The story of Naomi and Gabriel, of the cursed wedding, is not merely a tragedy. It stands as a reminder to us all that no matter how painful, the truth must always come to light. Truth is not only the foundation of love, but of every relationship in life. What about you? Have you ever had to face a difficult truth? Do you believe forgiveness and honesty can heal all wounds? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We would love to hear your story. And don't forget to click like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss our upcoming stories. But has this story truly ended? Beneath the oak tree, are there still secrets waiting to be uncovered? Do these people, once bound by fate, have more chapters yet to be written? Stay tuned to discover what happens next, because sometimes endings that seem final open the door to new journeys full of surprises and meaning.